So for those of you who are trying to learn TanStack Start, I wanted to give a quick video to walk you through the 3 different ways that you can kind of fetch data in your application. So we have a simple blog post application here where it has like a blog, but on the right we have something called related posts, which we want to fetch some data and have that displayed out. So the first approach, which probably is the worst in terms of user experience, is we could have this post data be fetched when the page first loads. So when it comes to TanStack Start, when you have a route, you can add something called a loader, and that loader can dynamically fetch data from a server function or an API endpoint, and then the page will return that data after the React components are all done, kind of like generating the HTML. So let's simulate this. I'm going to go ahead and make a loader function like this, which is going to wait for 2 seconds. And then I want to go ahead and say related posts and just make like an array of a couple of these. So let's just do like 3 of them. Okay. Now in TanStack Start, this loader function is basically a way to abstract away an API endpoint, but you don't have to worry about defining the endpoint. So this is nice because you can call this from your React code and not have to worry about setting up your API endpoints and all this other stuff. But the key thing is that you have type safety. So wherever you call it, it's going to know that it's returning a object that has a related posts property. So again, in the loader, we're going to go ahead and call this function. I'm going to say const data is equal to await loader, and then we can just go ahead and return that. And now once you have that data returned from the loader, you can just go ahead and say const data is equal to route dot use loader data, and then you'll have that data over here. So you see here it has a object with related posts and then an array. So we're going to take that, and then we're going to go ahead and just like render this out real quick. So let's go to home, and I'm going to click about, and notice that it does wait for about 2 seconds, and then it will show the full page. So again, this is probably the worst user experience because it waits until the database returns the data, and then you can use it to render out the page. But it's also good for search engine optimization. Sometimes web crawlers want all the data to live there before it actually like starts indexing the page. And so if there's something that you need to exist on the page before the web crawler hits it, that is the approach that you can take. So use a loader and then call a server function. Now, a different approach, which I think is probably a little bit cleaner and better. So around this related post where we're kind of displaying this, I'm going to say suspense, which is built into React 19, I believe, or maybe it's 18, I don't even know. But you can actually add a fallback here. So you can actually have it show some type of loading component or a spinner while these related posts are still kind of fetching data. Now let's dive into the related posts, and instead of trying to get the data from the use loader data, which we're not even using anymore, what we can do instead is we can actually just say const data is equal to use suspense query, and then we're going to call our loader function again, which is up here. And then we can use that data. I think I just need to destruct this like this. Okay, so now let's go back, and I'm going to refresh this page. I'm going to go to home, and then I'm going to click about. And notice that it loads basically instantly, right? It loads instantly, and then after 2 seconds, the stuff on the right side actually gets populated. Now, granted, if I wanted to make this a little bit better, I could probably just move, some of this stuff out of it so that it's going to be a little bit better looking. So I'll do this. I'm actually going to move this whole thing out of it too. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and just return a fragment, I guess. And then I might actually move out the H2 because I only want the post to kind of like sit there and show a loader. So we're going to go ahead and just make sure that this is looking good. It should just return that div. And then of course you could have like a skeleton loader if you wanted to, but now let's refresh this page and then go to about, and notice that it shows a panel with a loader, and then it shows the content. And then I would say this is a much better user experience, okay? So this is a second approach you can take. Use a suspense boundary, and then inside your related post, use a suspense query. And I think that data will technically be like streamed down when it's done. I don't know how the mechanism works under the hood. Maybe it streams down the data. Maybe this data just starts fetching when the page loads. You guys can correct me in the comments. And of course, the third approach I would recommend doing is you can just do an old-fashioned useQuery. Now, the only difference with this is that the data could potentially be undefined, but this gives you a little bit more flexibility because you have like an isLoading boolean that you could potentially use and just show like a skeleton loader or whatnot. The other approach, you could still do a skeleton loader. You kind of just have to put it here. So if you wanted to use the useQuery, honestly, the way I would do this is I'm going to move all this stuff back up into this component and then put this here, and then we'll save that. And the only difference is I'm going to go ahead and just say like if we're loading, then we can actually display like a loader. Otherwise, we're going to display this. I could actually say show a skeleton loader of 3 entries. Okay, so it's very similar. It's just like it kind of like changes the way you can potentially structure your code. I'm going to refresh, and now we have a skeleton loader, and eventually that will finish and show that content. So those are the 3 different ways I have seen data fetching done in TanStack Start. You have basically the loader function, you have a use suspense query, and you have just a traditional use query. If you're coming from Vite or just, single page applications, you may already be kind of used to the use query. And I think just knowing all 3 gives you the flexibility, depending on the page, when you need the data to kind of stream in or render, you can pick one over the other. Now, personally, I like the use query approach, especially since I like to use convex for my backend. So like I typically just use query for everything. But there are options if you wanted to have like your landing page or like your terms of service page, make sure everything is rendered before you show the content. There are approaches for that. All right, that's about it. Please leave a comment if there's anything I didn't explain well or I missed. Again, I'm still trying to learn TanStack Start and TanStack Router and make sure I understand React Query a little bit better, even though I've been using it for years. And finally, I have a Discord channel you guys can join if you want to find a place to kind of hang out and talk to other developers. The link should be in the description below. Have a good day and happy coding.